you know?
My company's moving to WebEx.
Yeah, that's it, oh, well, that's, geez.
Yeah, it's so much better.
It's not Zoom, it's not Zoom.
So Jim said he would text me when we're live. He said it's supposed to start at 5:30, but sometimes it takes a minute or two. So we're almost gonna be on.
Is that your son?
That's my, oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good, all good.
Alec.
Alec?
Alec with a K, no, cause sometimes they say Alex, so,
Yeah, Alec?
Alec, Alexander. This is
How are
Jim.
you?
Good.
Welcome, welcome,
He's
welcome.
15 years old, so.
13?
15.
15, there you go.
Oh, no, he got insulted, but it's
Well, he doesn't.
2 years now.
He's
That's a
definitely
big
not-
difference, yeah, 13 to 50,
Yeah,
come on
he's
now.
definitely not dressed like a 13 years old, he's
Wow.
dressed like a 15-year-old.
Well, thank you for joining us, Al. It's Alex, right?
Alec,
Alec.
with a K, Alexander,
Alec.
but I call him Alec, for short.
I see that we're live.
Are we?
My screen just popped up.
Okay, well, I guess let's get started then. Oh, here comes my prompt. All right, well, we're gonna start our meeting at exactly 5:30 on the dot. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm gonna go ahead and start our meeting with open comments. Although I apologize, it was late, I did notify as many as I could that they could send public comments or statements, questions to the Diversity Commission email, of which I'm checking right now, and there's none here. Let me just check spam really quick, because sometimes things do get directed there. So there are no public comments via email, and there are no public attendees here. Well, I mean, we have city officials or staff here. But what I'll do is, Tony got me a little distracted there with his waving a hand. All right, so we do have two public individuals here that are outside the commission joining us, so if you don't mind introducing yourself, and then if you have some statement or comments that you'd like to share, please do so at that time.
Sure. Alderman Janine Reardon, Third Ward. I'm here as my capacity as the chair of the Community Relations Committee, and hope to have some shared conversation at point 3 in the agenda.
Thank you. We're doing introductions, and if you have a statement, if you don't mind, here's an agenda, and if you don't mind signing in, that would be great. And while you're doing that, I'll let Tony go ahead. Mr. Loretto, go ahead.
Tony Loretto, from the Berwyn Police and Fire Commission.
And if you don't mind introducing yourself?
Absolutely, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Nicolette Penaranda, resident of First Ward.
Okay, great, thank you. Did you have any public comment or statement that you wanted to share with us all?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, all right, great. Well, just an FYI, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the process, but the only time to make
Is
public
open forum.
comments is in the beginning.
Yes,
Okay, great.
thank you.
All right, so moving on to our agenda item number 1. So, first of all, I want to apologize to everyone for the delay in us getting back together and the changes that have occurred since our last meeting. There's been a lot of misconceptions, misunderstandings, and different idealisms of the ad hoc status of the Diversity Commission, how that actually takes place, as well as the different roles. And there's been a little bit of discussion from that, and that's why Alderman Reardon is here. There's been a little bit of discussion on maybe some overlap and some gray areas of the 3 different committee and 2 commissions that exist that we have not really finalized or weeded out. But the work that we've started is critical and important, and although we have lost multiple members, I still feel that the need for us to meet and continue the work and get to the point where we feel that the topic at hand that we started with is completed. And so that's why we're here today. So moving forward to review and discussion of Chief Samaglia's letter, just to recap a little, if you all recall, at the last meeting that we had, I believe it was either June or July, forgive me if I don't have an exact date, but Andrea had sent the letter based on our feedback and comments on different situations that occurred, and also just to recap our original work with the Berwyn Police Department and Chief Samaglia. And from that letter, this is the response that you see in front of you from Chief Samaglia regarding those questions that were forwarded to him. Now, I know Andrea had sent this to us a while ago when Chief first sent it to us, so I hope you've had some time to review it and come up with some feedback on that and inputs. If not, let's just take a few quick minutes to look it over and see how we can move forward with this. Really what I'm looking for is to determine at this point if we feel like we've completed the task at hand, and that's dealing with the racial profiling subject that came up back in last year from the BCA, and if we've completed that so that we can close this sort of this topic that we have on the table. So feel free, everyone, please just go right in.
Yes.
Dive right in.
Okay, my name is Jesus Ramirez. I'm a resident since 1993 here in the city of Berwyn. I'm also a registered nurse. I'm a hazmat truck driver. I'm a father of two, a 15-year-old. One is accompanying me today, and you can see the word, and the other one's an 8-year-old. I've seen the difference in the changes since 1993. 2 weeks after the Rodney King beating, I was taken out of my vehicle by the Chicago police. And thereafter, I've probably had another 12 instances in my lifetime where I've had a gun put into my mouth and just different instances with different police departments around the country and in Mexico. So I know firsthand about the police department acting not appropriate to citizens. Now, here in Berwyn, I have never had anything bad to say about the police department. They've always, whenever, maybe 2 or 3 times, they've always answered the calls, just minor stuff, maybe a neighbor doing too loud noise. Other than that, I'm not trying to be on their side by getting points with the Berwyn Police Department. The 8 can wait. I am not satisfied with the 8 can wait regarding that they have imposed all the 8 can wait resolutions. One of the ones that I would like to get an answer as one of the commissioners, obviously the other commissioners also have a say-so, is I can't recall right now if it's the 2nd or 3rd of the 8 can wait, where a de-escalation, what is their training to de-escalate whether they have a subject in a car, at a home, who might be mentally incapable of knowing what's going on, and getting scared by seeing a police officer instead of somebody from a health department, a mental health department. How are the police officers being trained? Most police departments around the country have training, and it's documented in their policies, their police department policies. So my question for the Chief Samaglia and the Berwyn Police Department is, out of the 8, the one that concerns me is, I believe is number 2 or number 3, I think it's number 2, regarding the de-escalation. How are they being trained to de-escalate a moment when, especially right now with everything that has been going on? What training are they receiving? And saying that they are receiving training is not sufficient. What documentation? What I know that they're not getting continuing education classes because only the top brass gets that, according to the state law, and not the police officers. But the regular police officer, whether it's a rookie or one in the force 5, 10 years, what continuing education to de-escalate a possible situation that can become a George Floyd, a Breonna Taylor, or any a Rodney King. It doesn't happen here in the city of Berwyn. What is the city of Berwyn Police Department doing to police officers to train them? And once a year, twice a year, how often, have they not? That's the one of the 8 can wait that I would like to know.
So I'm looking at the chief's response to number 2, and it's the number 2, by the way, Jesse, required de-escalation.
Okay.
And he's saying outline in policy 802, section 2, subsection E, that is the response to that. So looking at that, I've included the policy, by the way. So if we go to that one now, section 2. Section 2, subsection E.
Okay, page 3.
Yes, it's at the top of page 3. So that's his response to the 8 can wait, number 2.
I'm gonna read what it says.
Sure.
It is imperative that officers realize that a use of force situation is a fluid and dynamic situation. The type and level of force used on a suspect may vary several times during an incident, and an officer must be able to recognize this need as it happens. Okay, must be able to recognize. Okay. An officer's use of force must be in response to the factors and circumstances present at the time and must be able to change as those factors and circumstances change. All reasonable attempts to de-escalate a situation should be used when encountered with the situation. Yes, I understand that any means not to use a weapon or which I think number 1 is no chokeholds, so not even a chokehold. But how are they being continually trained? Because it doesn't matter what type of job you have. You don't have to be a police officer. You have to continue getting training possibly on things that you have been previously trained. Even CPR. I get training CPR every year, even though I'm supposed to do it every 2 years, but I get every year because you forget how to do certain things in CPR. So how are these police officers being reminded what type of force or reasonable force they can use to de-escalate? So yes, I understand that they need to recognize the situation at the moment, but how are they being trained and retrained so they don't forget how to recognize that particular situation?
Okay.
Because from that point, if they're not able to de-escalate the situation, it could go a lot of ways. It could go just, okay, get in the car, we'll write you up a ticket, or a full-out shootout, or like we've seen on TV in other cities, and that's what we don't want to happen anywhere in the country, nonetheless here in the city of Berwyn.
Anything?
You know, a lot of this seems procedure and standards that the police department should be following. Is black and white, and none of these situations that they probably get to are not as black and white. So having the proper training and the proper continued training in de-escalation is probably a great tool and a great asset to the police officers themselves, not just on the benefit of the citizens themselves. Because de-escalation today, tomorrow you'll probably encounter that same person on the streets. It's really beneficial to both parties, citizens and police department, that continues training of de-escalation. What it comes down to, people, basic norms of being civil and being, gathering the information and reacting the right way. That doesn't happen all the time, obviously, but that's why the de-escalation has to be part of their training, and how often that happens, I don't know. but, it seemed very procedural, what was this? So section E, correct?
Right, top of page 3.
That would page 3, yeah, yeah, it seems like every other, piece of information that you get from a job application that you're supposed to follow. When we're talking about, things going wrong, should be a lot more detailed, and how these officers are being trained, and who keeps those records, how they're kept, how often. It should be part of, public knowledge, and we should have access to how often these officers are being trained on these, de-escalation procedures.
Okay. Anything else?
If I may add one thing more.
Sure.
One more thing. Like I stated, other police departments around the country have in their policy, it's written in. So one of the policies that I got, this is from near Atlanta, Georgia, it states in the borough, not in their police department, an officer should use de-escalation techniques and other alternatives to higher levels of force consistent with his or her training whenever reasonably possible and appropriate before resorting to force, and to reduce the need for force. Whenever reasonably possible, and when such delay will not compromise the safety of an officer or another, and will not result in the destruction of evidence, escape of a suspect, or commission of a crime, an officer should allow an individual sufficient time and opportunity to submit to verbal commands before force is used. Obviously, if somebody has a gun and, they're about to shoot at the police, they have to act quickly. But if somebody, 50%, I'm gonna say almost 50% of the calls are somebody who's mentally unstable. So they don't even know that that's actually a police officer. It could be just the next door neighbor coming to quiet them down. The thing is, how are the police officers in Berwyn being continually trained? And that's what not just saying, oh yeah, they're receiving the training and they know better, they got a brain. No, that's not enough.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll just share my thoughts on, since the start of our work. So going back to the letter, Chief Simagula's letter, and I'm gonna go point by point, because there's a couple of them that I have feedback on and some input. So for number 1, we had suggested that there be bias-free policing policy, and his response to that is, per your recommendation, the Berwyn Police Department's bias-free policing policy has been updated to reflect that training on the effects of bias based profiling and discrimination will be completed by members of the Berwyn Police Department on a yearly basis. Okay, so it looks like that will happen on a regular basis now, yearly. I still would like to know exactly to what degree, what level, who's doing the training, how the training is implemented. So I appreciate that, but I feel like it's still unfinished. For number 2, our response. His response is, we created an annual in-house implicit bias course to supplement our already existing triennial state-mandated bias-free training. So these two kind of go together with our recommendations. And I believe that one of our recommendations, which sounds like this is their answer to, was that we really wanted hands-on training, where someone who was an expert in the field was brought in from outsourced, and that they would provide actual demonstrative training, hands-on that the officers could get some very detailed skill training in this, on how to react, how to respond, what to take notice of, kind of like what you're referring to for the de-escalation, right? We want it very specific. So it doesn't look like that is being met, although to some degree they feel that it is, because they're creating it in-house, which I appreciate, because I'm sure cost and cost is a big subject. But again, this is something that I still feel that needs to be brought in from outsourced and not from someone internally, unless that person is specifically trained in this and has some sort of degree or some sort of certification of some sort that is specific to these two topics. The next one, the Berwyn Police Department worked collaboratively with the Information Technology Department to design a digital workflow that allows citizens to file an online complaint if they feel they have been mistreated by an officer. This form is now active and available on the city's website under Police Department. I appreciate that. I think that's a great big step, because if you recall, when we first brought this topic to the table, it wasn't well received.
Yeah.
So the fact that they went, the fact that they've taken action on this and have, made this big step, I really appreciate it, and I feel that it is a great big step. However, I still feel that it's an unfinished item because of two things. One is, I'd like to know who exactly is receiving these complaints, where do they go?
What's the follow-up?
What the follow-up is, and then, I appreciate that it's online. I think that that's I did look at it, by the way. I feel that some of those questions are, I think that it needs to be changed a little bit. I think some of the questions that are on there are not really pertinent, or could deter individuals from wanting to complete the report, the complaint, and send it in. So I'd like to look at that, and I'd like for us to provide some feedback on that. So if you all, after today's meeting, if you can look at that and see what you think about it and provide some input and feedback. But I think the first step, the really important step out of this, is that what is the process when a complaint is received? Who's receiving it? What is the follow-up? What is the procedures once they receive one? Because I think this is a wonderful step, and I think it's a great initiative on the Berwyn Police Department to even implement this, but I still feel that there could be, individuals would not feel like this is still the safest way to file a complaint, because who's receiving it, who's following up with me? It's kind of like, where does it go?
I mean, I guess you can make a point that that's why we come into play, to make sure that that complaint that is filed online reaches the right hands and is read by the right people that will follow and make the right recommendations. So to offer assurance to whoever is filing a complaint is our responsibility to get them to the right, make sure that it reaches the right person.
Now, I'm a victim, and I go on the website. Where is it, like right there where it says how to access it? Is it easily accessible, or do you gotta go through pages and pages, third, fourth page to find this complaint icon to file the complaint? How easily accessible is it to a victim?
It's a little layered, and so the steps to get to that is, first you go to the City of Berwyn's website, because the police department no longer has their own website. They have a Facebook page, but they don't have a website. And so you now go to the City of Berwyn's website page, and then you go to departments, you select departments, you scroll down to police department, and then when you hit police department, it then takes you to their page, and that's where you can find it. It's very easy once you get to that page, but you'd have to go through those steps to get there.
Okay.
Which I did a little research on different police departments in different municipalities, and it looks like this is the new norm. Some police departments are now integrating their face page with the municipality's webpage. And so it looks like there are multiple the police departments now functioning where they're integrated with the municipality website, and they just have a Facebook page. I'm not sure what the reasoning for that is, but it seems to be a growing process that I've noticed.
Now, a lot of people are either going off of Facebook, or they don't have a Facebook page, or not even Instagram or any Twitter. So if it's just a normal person, they can just go directly to the webpage, like to their local library, and go to the Berwyn Police Department's webpage instead of going to a Facebook page. Because if you don't have a Facebook page, you can't log in unless.
Well, the Facebook page is really for them just to share information.
Okay.
So they post their weekly reports there on the different crime stats that are happening. They'll post things on events or things like that they're having. So it's more of an informational page, so the complaint link is not on that page.
Okay.
It's just on the city website.
Later on tonight, I'll go myself on it to see how layered it is for our next meeting, so.
So you do have to put a little bit of thinking into finding it. So it's not like right as soon as you get there. So you have to kind of think it through, like, okay, if I'm going to put a police complaint in, then I obviously need the police department, and if I'm looking for a department, then, so, I
Well,
mean, it may
then-
not be that simplistic for a
Well-
lot of individuals.
Yes, but then you want people that are really suffering from something like that to take those steps. Because if you just make it available on the one page and just throw in your complaints, you can get inundated with things that are not as important, or that should be read, or that should be passed on, you know? So, I think taking those steps maybe is a good thing, because you're kind of separating what is really an issue and what is not an issue. If I am done wrong, if I feel like I'm done wrong, I'll be taking those steps. I'll find out how to get to that point to make my complaint.
My complaint would be maybe a police officer gave me a dirty look, or somebody else actually did something bad. Every complaint is different from every perspective, from every person. So whether it's just a dirty look from a police officer, or just a police officer actually pulled me out of the car and kicked me on the floor or whatever, each complaint should be taken seriously. So it doesn't matter if it's that person who submitted the complaint is putting their name, they're putting their phone number to get a return call. So it's not gonna be just a blank complaint of somebody fake. Somebody actually has, when they call back, say, okay, miss, or sir, you have a complaint. So that person is actually putting their
Name behind it, maybe.
So it shouldn't go that far as like making it harder for
No,
someone.
no, I'm not saying harder, but
Okay.
if there is 3-4 steps to get to the place where you file in this complaint, that means that it's really a complaint, it's a valid complaint. Let's take a look at this, let's look into it. You know, if the accessibility is right there in front of you, you're opening the door for a lot of things that maybe, and then it becomes watered down, and then to what do you look into? You look to the dirty look that you just mentioned, or you look to the handcuffs, or to, you know what I'm saying?
Maybe that's something for the alderman to.
I'm just saying,
see that if
I
somebody-
haven't seen it, I haven't seen it, I haven't checked it out, but I'm just saying, if there is 3-4 steps to get to the complaint, I don't know if that's a bad thing after all.
If there are people that are out there just wanting to throw complaints against the wall because they feel that, they just want to do it to give the police department a hard day, maybe that should be some type of ordinance that the city could say, you know what, if you file in a fake complaint, I don't know, maybe a $50 fine, $100 fine, something, so people don't do it on purpose, just because they want to make the police department mad.
In my opinion, as long as it's in the page of the police department, that's good enough. If there is an icon there by the police department's page, as soon as you click on the police department, on the page you find the icon.
So let me share here, can you all see, okay? So this is the City of Berwyn's website. If you go to government, and then you go to departmental directory, you click on that, and then you go to police department. As you can see, all the departments are listed there. This is the police department's webpage that is integrated here. So automatically here, if someone wants to submit a crime tip, that submission's here, and then if you have an officer complaint. So I mean, it's not
Okay.
difficult once
So-
you're on that page.
Sure.
But you just need to be able to navigate there. Obviously, it's not very, complicated to know that you're trying to reach a department within the city, right?
Correct.
But it's here. And when you click on it, it automatically takes you to the form.
Okay.
So this is the form, and it asks you some specific questions. Some of them are which you must input in that field in order for this form to be completed. So, I mean, it's a great first step.
It is.
I think it's, you know, it definitely is a step up from having to walk into the police department to file a complaint. So I just think that, I mean, this is definitely a lot of questions to answer, especially when you know, are thinking of filing a complaint. I think some of these are sort of irrelevant, and I think some of them could deter someone from wanting to submit one. But I'd like for all of us to take a look at it and provide some input. Because I'd like for this specific topic to continue with conversations with the police department, because I'd still like to know the who and the what.
Yeah,
But I really appreciate that this step being taken.
yeah, this is actually, yes.
It's a great first
This is
step.
a great first step.
Okay, so then, going on to, anyone else have any, Jordan, Jose, Jesus,
No.
are we good with that? Okay. So moving on to action response number 4, we have commenced the exploratory stages of creating, securing an in-person bias training component. We reasonably see this being implemented towards the latter end of calendar year 2021. We will be sure to update the committee as the progress with this initiative is fleshed out. Needed logistic details that align with our existing resources. So it sounds like 1 and 2 and 3 are still being considered. So the in-house,
And 4.
you know, the training, yeah, I'm sorry, 1, 2, and 4. It sounds like they're working on this, and we should be expecting an update and hopefully an implementation of 2021. So we'll definitely keep the lookout for that and keep our conversation and dialogue open with the Berwyn Police Department to make sure that that occurs. Other than that, we have the new items, you know, the 8 can wait, the civil unrest inquiry. Those were also in our letters, to which we do have responses from the chief. Was there anything else that you all wanted to include with some follow-up questions? I've got your input about the 8 can wait. As you just heard, I shared mine.
I see regarding the bike and foot patrols, that's one of the things that we wanted done since, so the police officers actually meet the residents, not just drive by the residents, actually go and as they walk on foot. I understand that this was pre-pandemic talk that we had, so hopefully next year things are better, but still, seeing a police officer either on a bike in springtime or summertime, not only will deter crime, but it will get, especially most of these police officers, they don't live in Berwyn, so driving by a block in Berwyn is not the same as walking it or being on a bike, getting to know Berwyn even more as a police officer. Some of these police officers live in different counties. They don't even live here in Berwyn, in Cook County. So, and they work here in Berwyn. So, I'm glad to see that.
Okay, so this will definitely be another agenda item that would need follow-up in the future, because as you just mentioned, Jesus, because of COVID, this is obviously something that cannot occur at this time.
Sure.
But also I'm noticing here that he mentioned, Chief Samaglia mentioned that he would be forwarding our requests surrounding the diversity breakdown of officers to the Police and Fire Commission for review, since they're the primary source for those data points. Tony, is there anything on that's an update, or did you see this beforehand? I'm sorry if you're just getting this letter now and seeing it.
I have several updates for you.
Okay.
One, since the last time I saw you, if you remember, I told you that the Police and Fire Commission was in the process of rewriting the rules and regulations. We have completed it. It was passed by the attorneys, and it was posted in the newspaper and advertised. The aldermen got notice that we passed the rules and regs. It's been on display. They are now fully in effect. So the new rules and regulations have come out, And what I did in these rules, or I should say the commission did in these rules, is we not only posted the rules and regulations, but we posted the references to the law that we must follow.
Great,
So we showed you, this is what we're doing, here's the reference in the law or statutes that says this is what you will do and this is how you will proceed. So that brings a lot more clarity to the rules, that people don't understand why you do it that way.
right.
But the law says that's how we have to do it. So that's been done. We are in the process, and by the way, that's a living, breathing document. It'll change constantly.
Right.
We've already got an amendment that we may have to put in there for that. So it'll constantly change, and we have it posted on the website for anybody to read. They can read our rules and regulations at any time. The other thing is, the commission is, the ongoing training of the commission has, I don't know if you realize it, but by state statute, every commissioner must be trained by the Illinois Police and Fire Commission Association. It's a 5-module process. It usually takes a full year to complete that training for every commissioner. We're gonna take it a step further because we are finding that we have a tremendous difficulty not only in attracting police officers, but we have a tremendous difficulty in attracting firefighters. Now, this is nationwide. Applications are down more than 63% nationwide to get people to take these jobs. So, we've teamed up with the Berwyn Development Corporation. We're using their advertising to go a little bit more broad-based and try to put some flair, advertising flair to, why do you wanna be a police officer, a firefighter in the city of Berwyn? So we've taken that. So because of that, on a yearly basis, there's a conference that's held in Philadelphia. I went to it once about 4 years ago. I'm gonna go back and take the refresher course along with 2 of our new commission members and the person from the BDC who does the advertising. And the conference is about how to attract and retain and promote minority officers, police and fire. It primarily focuses on the police. So we're gonna take that conference, and that'll be in January that we're going. We're already signed up, we're already been in the works for a long time. So, that's basically the new things with the commission. We just had a test, but for firefighters, we only got 27 applicants.
Wow.
27. I remember the days of 300. Can't get people to do the job. Same thing with, we have an upcoming test for police officers. I talked to the testing agency, and I anticipate probably 30 to 40 applicants at best.
So just 2 questions, Tony.
Sure.
So for the commissioners training, all 5 of the commissioners will attend that in January?
No, 2 commissioners, I'm sorry, 3 commissioners
Oh, okay,
and a member of the BDC.
Okay.
Dolores Hernandez is gonna go.
okay,
So yeah, that's all we got in the budget.
okay, no worries.
Unless somebody else wants to donate.
No,
I'll
but I'd
take
like to
more.
go. Secondly, so if Joe Smith resident wanted to look up this new document that links our policies to
Under the Police and
mandates,
Fire Commission.
I'm sorry?
Under the Police and Fire Commission. which
So
is-
if I go to the city website and go to police and then all of
Yeah,
them
you'll
will be
see the
there?
list,
Okay,
the eligibility list, any promotional list, and the rules and regulations.
so just kind of, again, going through this.
Go to commissions, right?
Fire and Police Commission.
Yeah.
Did I press the wrong thing?
I don't know. Can't see from there.
Sorry, I know it's really small screen, I thought I'd just share it anyway. So I'm selecting this, Police and Fire Commission, correct?
Correct.
And all I get is this.
That's the public notice. It should have been after that.
Okay, so maybe we can get that.
I'll have to ask Mr. Franks,
Okay,
because we're missing the list on there too. The eligibility list should be posted also.
I thought I saw, I saw that in the police department. Do you think it's in each department separately?
Well, the police list is posted in the police station and the clerk's office downstairs, along with, it's supposed to be online, so maybe it is.
Cause I noticed that when I did go to, well, before anyway, so I'll just double check it right now, maybe they've put them up on each department page.
If so,
See, 2020 police candidate final
there
eligibility
you go.
list.
Oh,
This
so
is
they
under
moved
the
it
police
over.
department.
They moved it over then.
Okay, so will you just follow up with me on where we could find that document? I
Should
mean,
be-
The
not this, I thought you said the policies are now
The
available.
rules and
for-
regs,
I'm sorry?
rules and regulations.
Yes,
I will check with Jim Franks, I don't know why
Okay.
they're not
Okay.
on there, I mean, you saw the notice.
right,
It should have followed after that.
okay. I just wanna make sure I'm in the right place.
I
Okay,
will
thank you.
check on that tomorrow.
Thank you, Tony. I really like that, by the way, I think that's great, that anyone can look that up and do their cross-referencing and cross-checking.
The way it
and-
should be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great, I love it. Okay. All right, anything else, or can we move on to our next agenda item? Do we have any other final comments, questions, or input?
On this 8-10 rate update, it sounds like, the chief is saying that 7 out of 8, and then the 8, and then the 8 is being complied with. Is that what I'm getting? Is that right, or is that?
So if we go to their document, so it sounds like that as of a certain date, which looks like it may be June
Recently.
9th, that they were covering 7, and then now
7 out
8
of
has
8.
been
And the 8 has been revised. and-
included,
yeah.
correct. But he said he's got a document there, so let me go to that quickly.
I think in the copy, I'm missing a page in that letter.
Do you have a back and a front? So this is the front of the page.
Okay. This feels to me like this is.
You're missing one?
Yeah.
Is it one of these? You have this one, sounds like this one. you're
Yeah,
missing.
thank you.
Okay, sorry about
No,
that.
no. It's just easier to read with all.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking for his attachment, but I'm not finding it. We have included a document that outlines the specific areas of our policy that align with the Aiken Wade initiatives for your references. I actually think it's that one. It's this one. You should be looking. It's that, but I also think it's this
Let
one.
me see what you got there.
Are you missing a page 2? Sorry.
Well, I don't know, are you looking at this? Do you have these pages?
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Because those are the same thing, they list to the policy and state laws.
Yeah, so I
You
think
got
if
it.
we start with this page,
Policy.
correct. And in their policy, then you'll see the different 1 through 8 in here. So number 8 specifically.
Which is actually number 6 on their letter.
In their policies, number 6,
Yeah.
keep the force.
No ban shooting and moving vehicles.
Oh, it's an actual number 6, okay.
this, I'm having difficulty finding this, are we talking about 8 comprehensive reporting?
Is that your question?
No, I don't have a question. I was trying to say that, if you read the letter in back on, trying to address, 8 can't wait update, the chief is saying that they were, since 2018, they had covered 7 out of the 8 initiatives. And, the one that was not covered was a response to shooting at a moving vehicle,
Which is number 6 on.
which is number 6 on the rules, I guess.
And said, so.
And he's saying that, they are proud to announce that they have made regular changes to be compliant with the
And
standard.
if you look underneath that, so that should be policy 802, section 2, subsection K, part 5. So section 2, part 5. Doesn't look like it matches up though. I'm looking in the wrong place.
You should see
It's on page 3
that.
here, this one,
Okay.
right, it's the shooting outside of a moving
Okay.
vehicle.
So they listed it on page 7, firearm discharges. They have up to 8, and then after that they added.
What page are you on?
Page 7. If you look in the corner, page 7, at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Firearm discharges?
Mm-hmm.
Here's about this,
It
firearm
doesn't-
discharges.
Yeah,
It's-
but it doesn't say regarding a moving vehicle.
Yeah, I don't see it.
So, so when I read K5, it doesn't ban shooting at moving vehicles? It, does it?
It's not,
It's not specific.
it's not, yeah.
It's discouraged. The second sentence, the Berwyn Police Department discourages
Right,
the discharge, but it does not ban it.
correct.
Okay.
And many police departments, they know that it doesn't make a better difference of shooting at somebody who's moving in their car. Because that bullet could go into a house, it could go into somebody else's car when the vehicles are moving. So,
Tony, do you have anything you wanna share on that or elaborate?
You're asking me to talk about something that is outside of my realm. I
Okay.
deal with police officers, firefighters before they get on a job, or if there's a disciplinary action.
I just know you as a jack of all trades, so I thought I would just go there. Thought I would just test the waters.
Those are internal policies, I don't deal with internal, I can quote fire policies, but I'm not an expert on police policies.
Okay, so is that something I'm adding to our list of
I mean,
questionable?
it seems like, this point here on, is misleading. because if it's, doesn't ban it, it's probably not a can wait update, it's just put in some lipstick, but
Okay.
Some more clarification on that one should be provided.
no, it's actually misleading altogether.
And in case they don't wanna ban it, why don't they wanna ban it?
Okay. All right, anything else before we move on to our next agenda item?
No?
Going once, going twice?
We've been, talking about the police department for over a year, since in 2019 when we started, summer of 2019, so the end of 2020, basically. There's other topics that we, as the diversity commission, need to also add, not that on, like Plan B or Plan C, no, it's just, it should be on the same level as the police department. What is our role as a Berwyn Diversity Commission? We should not only be a diversity commission, we should be an inclusive commission. And we need to know where we're gonna go, especially we don't know if we're gonna meet in a month or 2 months, or if there's gonna be another break. If hopefully not, any other members should resign. Or are there gonna be any other members added? Where are we gonna go? And also, with Alderman Reardon's commission, are we overlapping, or are we doing something that they're already doing?
I guess that's a segue, yeah.
I think that's a perfect segue.
Perfect.
It is. So, Janine, do you wanna talk a little bit, can you give, the commissioners, cause I don't know if you recall, these two were not, and I don't mean these two, but these gentlemen were not at our meeting when we discussed the full, the triology, is that, am I saying that right?
Sure.
Not-
Triage.
The trilogy.
Trilogy.
The trilogy
Right.
of commissions here and the overlap. And so, if you can give us a really quick recap on that,
See if I can do it.
because it is
Real
part
quick.
of the discussions and it is, you have all the same questions that I have as an alderman and that Janine Reardon has as an alderman, so.
All right. So, so there are 3 entities. You all who are an ad hoc committee, a pre-existing commission, sorry, I just completely blanked on it. Community Relations Commission. They were set up originally in response to some activity in the 80s and 90s about fair housing. And that, I think, was the Campbell case in particular. If you're familiar with that, a family was firebombed, and it became indicated that there were systemic issues with police protection and housing in Berwyn and not protecting people, black family. And so that commission has had a difficult time maintaining a quorum and meeting and fulfilling its obligation, although they have a budget, unlike you. And so part of our conversations have been to look at their history and how they're being effective and what purposes they're meeting. What I've been able to see is that they really are focused on fair housing, at least in its conception and in the ordinance that created them. And so I don't think that should, I think we have to figure out as a city how to continue to maintain that vehicle. The third entity was created when we became aldermen by the mayor and its Human Relations Committee that I'm the chair of, but that Alderman Ruiz and Alderman Abala are on. And the three of us have primarily focused on, I think individually, but also conceptually on neighbor disputes. You know, sort of a vague, kind of not very concise definition of what we're for, unlike some of the other longer standing committees that have very clear goals and guidelines. The Finance Committee, for instance. It seems obvious what they do. And so, as we've, you all have run out your work here for this year and done great things and really delved into areas that you didn't sign up for, probably. The questions have been raised about who are you? How do you function? Do you have, what are your responsibilities? What are the commitments from the city to give you authority? And how do we consider the work that you do in context with these other committees? And so I think that was fast and dirty.
It was great,
Okay.
straight to the point.
Okay. So I'm here to talk with you about the questions that you asked. Jesse?
Yes.
And I mean, you articulated the segue very nicely into this conversation. What is the scope and scale of your work? It has become de facto almost exclusively about the racial profiling. 8 Can't Wait tapped into that, and then Mr. Floyd's death further exacerbated the urgency about that. And I don't think it's remiss that you be delving into that, but there are other things too. And so, but if they're not written down, do you know what they are, and how do you, in the middle of urgencies, continue to do the mundane, very necessary work that you could be doing? And I hope that City Council can provide some guidance about that in conversation with the community about what we, who do we want to be in Berwyn, and how does community and citizen committee interface with that, so that we're not just, you know, going business as usual, ignoring things that maybe have been underlooked for decades, but begin that conversation openly. And you guys have experiences that no one else in the city has. And so I want to have that conversation in part with you, which is, I think, where we started from. So it's this is your meeting, so that's my entry to it.
Thank you. Thank you, Janine, for that, Alderman Reardon, for that recap. So yes, that is the $1 million question, and right now it's really, so it's kind of gone back full circle. So it started from City Council. We empowered you as an ad hoc committee to review this specific community question, and I feel like we've just about wrapped up that. And a couple months ago, as you recall, when I stepped aside, was pretty sure that the next day at council, you would be blessed and empowered to move forward as a diversity commission. Since then, Alderman Reardon has just filled you in on what has occurred since then to now, and why there's been sort of an idle position that we've been in, because I had hoped that by this time we would have had some clarity, we would have had a clear vision, we would have had a shared agreement from all council members, and we would have given you the royal scepter, so to speak, as to move forward. Because to me, the Diversity Commission should not be a reactionary committee or commission. It should have a clear vision, a purpose, a role. It should be shared and agreed amongst all 8 aldermen, and it should definitely be aligned with how we can involve community participation, right? And how we can better the community from a resident's perspective, and how we can link that with the vision of city council members. And how does that work well moving forward? You know, where are the boundaries? What are the jurisdictions? what are the areas of interest? All of those things should be clear and precise, so that as you're moving forward, there isn't any misconception, misunderstanding, underrepresentation, overrepresentation of your work, of the work that you do, so that we don't have, so that it's very easy for the commissioners to interact and engage. And unfortunately, I apologize, we have not gotten to that point. But I have been sort of, I'll use it, and I mean this slightly, strong-arming Alderman Reardon that we need to come to some sort of conclusion, some sort of agreement, so that it could be brought back to City Council for approval.
Sure.
And discussion.
Sure.
So that's where.
I'll join in the strong arming, that part of my concern has been, it's not been clear about what your authority is. The fact that it took so long for you to get a response from the chief of police indicated that there's a question about how quickly folks need to respond to you. And that can't be adjudicated or fixed by you. It has to be fixed by us. And figuring out how to get the votes for that and to make the case has put us to this place. So, does that, when you think of, can I ask?
Sure.
Just in terms of the scope for the work that you all have done, were you adequately trained for it?
No, we were not.
Would you like that to change?
Yes, it would, because obviously it doesn't matter if you think you're intelligent enough to want to help our fellow neighbors. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, we are just residents of the city of Berwyn, but we are here voluntarily because we want to, for our kids, for ourselves, to continue loving this beautiful city that we have, and getting people to come and visit our city, to buy in our city. Our neighbors, instead of settling disputes, to have our neighbors be neighborly and have eventually different cultural events where it's not just a Hispanic event, it's not just an African American event, it's just not a Puerto Rican event or a German event. It's a cultural event where it could be down the block where you have a German setup, an Italian setup, and Arab food or whatever, and all the neighbors can come like a taste of Berwyn type. It could be art, it could be music, it could be food, it could be just Berwyn being neighborly, being one city, one town, not just having a Mexican Independence Parade for only Mexicans, or having something for a certain culture group. It should be all of us, an inclusive city. We are a welcoming city, but we should reach out more, not only within our city, maybe down the road. We can have a sister city within either our country, within the United States, or outside of our country, some other country like Poland or Mexico or whatever that matches here in the city of Berwyn. We need a sister city.
So I hear you. I hear you speaking of programs that bridge differences and that give windows into our neighbors' cultures, so that we see each other.
In our block, I don't know who my neighbor across the street lives or over here. In order for us to know who we are, we need to know who we live around us, not to be scared of seeing a black man walking down the street or a white man walking down the street, or if we don't know who we are,
right.
We're never gonna know. And that's why the continued disputes between neighbors continues, because we know that neighbor lives 2 houses down from us.
Sure.
That seems more, that seems
Yeah.
more of a human issue than a Berwyn issue. I think people are getting more closed into their homes all around the world, not just in Berwyn. But if I can quickly answer, when I signed up for this, you said did you receive the right training? I was brought in as a citizen of Berwyn to look through the facts and give my opinion still as a citizen. So needing training to be a citizen does not sit right with me, but I was brought in and I did my part. I gave my time.
Sure.
I simmered through and I gave my opinion as a citizen, as the person that will be stopped by the police and will have an interaction with the police. And I didn't think at the time, or I don't think now, I needed training to offer my opinion on what is right and what is wrong from a citizen's perspective. So, did we need training? I didn't think so. I don't think so now either, but
Your question was, did we receive training on 9/11? That's why I said, no, we did not. And like he states, Dritten states, as a citizen, or resident of the city of Berwyn, we bring our perspective as a resident, and training is not necessary.
I see.
Because we are not an elected official. Now, if I were to be an elected official, then yes, I would have to have whatever training an alderman or a mayor or a police officer would need. But so if I'm here to give my opinion.
Sure. I hear you both. And I guess the question that I have is, you all were given a fairly serious police profiling question that, in my mind, the general public doesn't usually deal with. And there were some technical aspects to that strike me as not just seeking opinion, a general opinion, but some real fact finding. And if that is the purpose of the committee to do, did you have enough training to do that? Which is different than, as your general just citizen opinion about how things work, but did you have the necessary tools to delve into that material to fully understand it so that you could make a broader, not just individual statement, but a corporate statement? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'll just chime in.
Yeah.
So, couple things here. So, number one, when you talk about training and you talk about fact-finding in information, I feel, my opinion is, and everyone could feel differently here, but my opinion is that the commissioners did do that. Now, if we were asking them if we ask them and we give them a different task, like, is there discrimination happening in Berwyn? Do we have implicit bias? Do our elected officials understand what that means? So I think when we start to ask them to delve into that and to see if we need that sort of education on any tiers of our levels, from staff to city council members, to department heads in our fire and police departments, then I think that yes, that's a different type of ask. That's a different type of task. And so do they need training? Absolutely, because now you're looking for specific buzzwords. You're looking for specific actions, whether they're intentional or unintentional, because a lot of things that occur are unintentional, right? I could have offended you by a word that I said without any knowledge. It's just from my upbringing, right? That's how I speak now. But in the current state of affairs, that could be very offensive now. So how do we educate? How do we inform each other in areas like that, right? So that now you're asking for someone to come with a specific expertise, a specific level of education and understanding. I think when we talk about the racial profiling, did we look at facts, did we delve into it? I feel that we did, and I'm gonna just give you a couple of examples of why I feel that we did that. One is we looked at the stats. Did we feel that, we were able to prove that racial profiling existed? Not from the data that was given to us, right? Not from the data that was provided, not from the data that was looked into. Did we make recommendations of that because we didn't find hardcore facts that said, stamped it and said this is happening? But we still felt that things could have been improved, and we're working on those improves. And I think that moving forward, these are highly critical. You know, when you talk about, you have to walk into the police department to file a complaint, to being able to do that online, I mean, you just did a leap year of improvement. Is it done? Absolutely not. Do you need specific expertise to be able to outline that and create that framework? My opinion is no, because I think from the standpoint, like he said, well, I'm a resident that's going through those steps. I'm a resident that is experiencing that has either experienced a traumatic event or is experiencing the process because of it. How would I feel as an individual, as a person? I don't think that you need expertise to be able to define that.
So Alderman, I appreciate that, and I just want to say, I deeply appreciate the work that you've done, and I see the results of it. That I'm not trying to ask questions to say anything other than, when you spoke about your vision for this commission just earlier here in this conversation, and where you build bridges and you see your neighbor and we exist together in a wonderful atmosphere, that is a very specific understanding of what your committee is doing. And the mayor and the city council handed you a racial profiling problem, and I think that they possibly don't go together. That your commission designed with your framework and the task that was given to you didn't match, and yet you weren't trained so that it could match. We just asked you to use the rubrics that you had to address some very technical and conflictual issues. And in terms of fairness to you, in fairness to the scope of your committee, I don't think we did that matching very well. And the blame should go to the mayor and to city council, who approved that shift so that you guys would look at that, not knowing whether or not you have the resources you needed or the authority to get the answers to the questions that you asked in a timely manner. That's all I'm trying to parse out as we consider what the future is, and what the scope of your committee is, and what the scope of these other committees is. How do they fit, and what role do you want to play? What role does council want you to play? And how does that function? And so I'm sorry if it feels like I'm being critical of you. I'm not intending to do that at all. I'm trying to understand if you thought that the task that was given to you was an excellent fit, that you were well trained and prepared for. That was the purpose of my question.
To that question, I'll say that there was the task. It's not a small task, but was very general. There was not a specific incident that we were breaking down. That would be completely different. Then I would say, sorry, I'm not your guy. I don't have the expertise. But to process certain information and come up with recommendations, I think not just myself, but any citizen would have been able to do. And I'm proud of what we have done, but I'm pretty sure that any other citizen would have come to the same conclusions or same recommendations that we did. So.
Fair enough.
And we do not take it in a negative fashion, the way you are constructive criticizing. It's very good, because yes, it was a big task. It was something that we thought it would be something about diversity, cultural stuff, neighbor stuff, and then we got this on the table. But with all the commissioners, past and present, I think we have achieved what other citizens, if we were not here, other citizens probably would have reached the same conclusion. as, cause they either have dealt with the police, they've had a family member that have dealt with the police, not just watching the news, but actually dealing with things with the police officers. Not only, the website, but bringing two more commissioners to the hiring process. There were 3 before, now there's gonna be 5.
There are 5.
That was Reverend Green's, issue, and because of her, 2 more people are there.
Well, in all fairness, that process was in place almost 2 years ago.
It was, okay, well, we didn't know.
Because we had to get the approval to expand, it was an expenditure.
Okay,
So we had to get an approval, and we had to set up then we had to write the guidelines. How are we gonna do this, why are we doing it, and all that stuff, they had to go through. So that was in the process almost 2 years ago.
okay.
Along with the training, we've been doing the training all along. That's commission work, that's by state statute. The extra training that we're gonna do in Philadelphia, we're taking that on as a commission, we wanna do that. Cause I'm telling you, I don't think you realize, with all the bashing of police officers and firefighters nowadays, who wants to take a job when they constantly say defund the police? Who wants to go and get a job? You know, you're in real estate. If they tell you real estate, we're gonna defund real estate, why go into the business? Why do it? And that's what's gonna happen, and it's happening big time, and we're trying to figure it out. How do you get qualified people I don't care what they're in, how do you get qualified people to take the job? You don't want candidates to flunk out of the academy. I mean, it's a rigorous academy to go through to be a police officer. It's almost a 2-year process.
Regarding defunding the police, that's probably just a separate, topic that I'm not gonna.
No, that's,
touch at the present
I didn't mean to bring it
No,
in
no, no.
that way.
But, you know, that's more, because we need, professionals to go to those
Right.
locations where police officers shouldn't be. Regarding the training, yes, it could have been other, not Dre, not myself, not Andrew, not Reverend Green, Nancy, the other commissioners who were here. It could have been, her, it could have been an older son of mine, not that I have an older son, but it could have been him. It could have been others.
5 years from now.
5 years
We've
from
done
now.
it before.
Yeah, maybe he'll be here in 5 years from. You know, there's certain training, like he's Jordan stated, if it was something specific about a particular crime, a particular situation, yeah, probably we would have needed more training, but in this, we were just residents, with our life experiences that we've had. Just like I said, 12 times in my lifetime, I've been in really bad situations with police, and I have 0 record, and I would not be a registered nurse. So, I just fit the profile at the moment. That's the reason I had that situation with the police officers. So, but regarding training, we want to continue dealing with this situation.
Sure.
We want to continue whoever comes on, whether it's through this commission or through the Human Relations Committee or the Community Relations Commission. If we're going into their area, we don't want to. If there's something and they tell, hey, you know, come and tell you, or one of us, Alderman Riordan, say, you know what, that's our, you know, you shouldn't be touching that. Okay, we will stop immediately.
Sure.
So, but yes, we want to continue working to see where we're going, where we're at, where we're going, and where we want to be. Regarding the neighbor disputes, I do not remember her name, but she said that you guys did not meet frequently.
That's, I think.
That's a community
Susan-
relations,
well,
Amanda, maybe, or Susan Green?
Susan was the one
Okay.
who spoke about that, but yes, I think that's right.
So how often, maybe that, not that that commission should not exist, but okay, if you guys, that commission does not meet maybe once a year, twice a year, maybe it should be added to one of the other commissions and just eliminate that commission altogether.
Well, and the interesting thing is that is the only one that has an ordinance attached to it, and that is actually a fair housing, commission.
Mhm.
And so they've, over time, not done that. They've moved into this, it's a role slippage, it's a responsibility slippage.
Mhm.
And, so part of, for me, the conversation is, how do we assert and establish your role? And it was somewhat broad, as it was created.
I agree.
And it could be defined more precisely.
It actually needs to be.
Our hope is to do that. And we're simultaneously considering these other avenues as well, so that there isn't overlap. And there isn't, you're in my lane, that's unnecessary.
Right.
We can fix that, from go, or as close to go as we are. So I appreciate you very much, and the work that you've done, and your recommendations are quite good. They're just good, and they have pushed conversation forward. I think it needs to go forward, and it can go farther. How we get that done moves from you to city council. So,
At least from the commissioners that were here and are here, we have no political agenda. We're just residents of Berwyn. At the end of the day, we're not red, we're not blue, we're just residents of Berwyn who want to see a better Berwyn.
And if I just may add, one final piece. So Alderman Reardon, in thinking of the future of, one component, the diversity, I'll label it the Diversity Commission right now, just to keep it simplified.
Sure.
But I believe that moving forward, because of this agenda, I mean, this topic, the subject topic right now, racial profiling, I feel like, okay, that's been great, but I think moving forward, and since a year has passed, a lot has occurred. And so when we have chains of events that are pertaining to a mural, when we have chains of events that are going on nationwide, are they applicable to us or not? And when we talk about, equity across our city, and the policies that we're implementing and that we vote on
Right.
at every city council.
Right.
Where does I feel that is where the Diversity Commission comes in, right? And so when we start to talk about those topics of
Sure.
equity
Sure.
and, a topic such as the mural and the chain events that occurred for it to happen, to me, those could have all been avoided if we had looked into those and beforehand, instead of reacting to situations, instead of reacting to, nationwide occurrences that are now, funneling into our community. And so when we talk about reviewing things like that,
Yes.
implicit bias,
That's right.
equity, discrimination,
Right.
unwelcoming,
All very specific terms.
underrepresented, marginalized.
All very specific words that mean very
That's when
specific things.
that's when training needs to come in.
I'm agreeing completely.
And that's when we need a bigger core of commissioners, that's when we
Mhm.
need specific expertise brought to the table for
That's
that. Did we need that when we did this? I'm gonna disagree with you and say no, but I think moving forward on how I see this actually taking place and being a living, breathing commission, then yes, we need to expand and we need to bring different expertise and we need to make sure that certain training is done and that, those discussions are definitely coming from a professional background, an informative background, an educated background, just to add to that.
And a diverse background in terms of people bringing their fullness to the table. And we have robust conversation with details. And we can support our feelings and our understandings with details, because that's what moves us in a professional world when we're talking across departments about the way things function. It's foolish for me to say, I think that when we talk about asphalt, that we should use X, Y, and Z. Mr. Schiller knows right away that I know not what I'm talking about. And so I needn't even have that conversation. But having someone who knows asphalt have that conversation is completely different in that professional interaction. And so how do we bring those dynamics into the citizen conversations? And the reality is, you gentlemen have vast experiences that contribute to the conversation. Who can we add to the table who has different expertise, different experiences, so that the fullest conversation is possible and we move forward? So I agree with what you were articulating about, and your commission has been successful. You have gotten responses from the police department and some shifts and some changes. Is it finished? I don't think so. Should you be proud of it? I do think so. And I appreciate you very much, so thank you for that. And I believe our conversations will be ongoing.
Yeah, and I think in order for, I'd like to definitely, again, I'm just gonna go back and repeat myself, that I would love for this item to be what we consider closed and finished. I mean, obviously, some of the responses here talk about future dates, a year from now or 2 years from now. It's definitely something to keep, on a notepad to review in a future time. But I do think it's time to move on, and I do think that it's time to look at Berwyn from a global perspective, and a very, very finite view as well. But again, that needs to be clarified.
Yeah.
It needs to be clarified, it needs to be designed, it needs to be precise, and you need to know exactly what the vision is, what the expectations are, and what is your, how are you being empowered, right? How are you being accepted and received and perceived by every department head and by community residents, so that it's very clear, and that your work can be exactly what it is expected to be, without presumption, without misunderstanding, and without misrepresentation. And so I hope that this helps a little bit on why things have occurred and why they sort of seem dismantled at this point, and why it seems that it has been idle. It's been for these reasons. So again, I want to thank you all, even the commissioners that are not present, that have invested a lot of time and energy into this. It's been a lot of, you have devoted a lot of attention to this. You have made some great recommendations that I'm proud to say, maybe they were a little resistant in the beginning, but they've come to formation. So I'm really proud of that, and I hope that you continue on once it's finalized on what that vision is, and it's agreeable amongst our council members, and we can hand it back to you with some real depth of what it means, the Diversity Commission, and what your role is on there.
Alderman Reese, I, speaking for myself, I wish we could have closed this 3 months ago or 6 months ago. We're now in almost November, and the only reason is because the chief delayed the responses, or took more time that should have been taken. If we've gotten those responses, we could have been closing this since springtime. It's now almost winter. So, yes, I would like to close this, but I still want a response regarding the de-escalation. I will not let that go, because if we let it go, who knows when this 7 out of 8, I mean, it should have been, a lot of police departments have done the 8 can wait since 2019, okay, where it's almost 2021. So, yes, I want to close this as soon as possible, so I want the chief, if he could please, in the next 30 days, 30 days should be plenty of time to let the commission know how is he, as the chief, implementing training to put the police officers regarding how to de-escalate a situation. Watching a video game on TV and reacting to A or B or C, that's not training. Are they actually getting physical training? So, yes, as soon as the chief provides that information, if it's tomorrow, it's closed tomorrow. If it's in next week, it's closed next week. If it's in 30 days, I hope we can meet in 30 days, then we'll close it in 30 days. We cannot let that go.
Thank you, Jesse. And just in all of our defense, not just the chiefs, and not to justify the response time, but in all of our defense, please do not omit or dilute the whole COVID situation. I mean, literally our entire world stood still for 3 months. And the focus was not on a request for a response, but how do I continue to keep my staff safe? How do I become part now of this emergency management system? But I mean, I'm not using that to, at any shape or form, justify the response, but I'm saying, please keep that into consideration. We didn't meet for 3-4 months because of COVID. So, I mean, the world literally stood still for almost 4 months. So let's just keep that in mind. Moving forward, let's definitely give some, very specific timelines we would like a response by. And let's just keep that pushing forward, forging forward, and I will take the responsibility of continually following up. May we get that response? May we get that response? Why don't we have a response? I will take full responsibility for that, regardless of what's going on in our world. Unless I die tomorrow, then I'm sorry I can't help you. But other than that, I will make myself responsible for keeping that on track. Okay?
I mean, we can, just one last thought, and we can actually, take a second and have some pride that we were having this conversation before it became a national conversation. So, if you stop and think about it, we were talking about this 1.5 years ago before it hit the, and I mean, something happened, an incident happened, a specific incident happened, and brought it to the attention everybody's attention, but we're talking about this 1.5 years ago. So, in that aspect, I think, credit to whoever person brought up the issue, credit to everybody making this commission happen and being part of this commission, and Andrea put in so much time, research, and effort into leading it for so long, and the Reverend was a huge asset to it, and so let's take some pride in that. And
I agree,
yeah.
I agree, and, and it's unfortunate that we didn't, that's why I don't wanna make the same mistake. I want the vision to be very clear, I want the roles to be very clear, I want the task at hand to be very clear. We did lose some really, really great individuals who put their heart and soul into this, and because of that, we've got some great work completed. So we won't make that mistake again moving forward. I'd like to go ahead and schedule the next meeting since we're all here, so it's on our calendars. And then I will get the letter together to submit to the chief, and then work on getting a response, and also inviting them to attend the next meeting if they'd like. The chief and his staff, or whoever he designates as a proxy to be here. So we wanna stick to Mondays at 5:30, that best day for everyone?
Yeah.
Alderman Reardon, do you think that we can have something together by that point to bring to the table to
Absolutely.
discuss?
Absolutely.
Okay,
But and I'm guessing at the next meeting is what, if there is gonna be a transition on what we're working on as a future project, is that what I'm guessing, trying to wrap this up and what's?
so my plan is to, one, wrap this up, finalize this, put a nice bow on it and say it's completed. And number 2, talk about the actual vision of the
what?
diversity
Oh,
commission.
okay.
And a piece that we can present to council for approval.
Oh.
That's what that'll be the 2 agenda items.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So a month from now, on a Monday, we are looking at
16?
Yep, November 16th works for me. How does that work for everyone? Monday, 5:30, November 16th? Okay, great.
Good.
All right, well, our meeting had, Tony, any last comments or anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I think I kinda said what, the separation of the commission is entirely different than the rules and regulations and the policies and procedures of the police department. The only time the 2 intermix is during promotion or disciplinary action. And that's the only time.
Hiring.
Huh?
And hiring.
No,
No?
police department has nothing to do with hiring, neither does city council, neither does the mayor. The commission is the only body of government that can recommend and certify the appointment of police officers and firefighters, the only body of government.
And the
And we
process.
operate independently.
And the process is the chief, either of police or fire, makes a request to council, And
Correct.
council approves of the request for someone to be approved or to be looked at by you,
Right.
and that process to start.
And to be honest with you, though, Alderman, now that you brought that up, that's something I'd really like to see changed, because that's adding another delay in the process. When you're waiting
Sure,
to get somebody into the academy,
sure.
and we have to wait for the city council to say, yeah, go ahead and talk to the commission. You've already established a list. The
Sure.
list has already been approved and done with the clerk's office.
And I'll just for just a second for interaction here. If you do that, then who's determining what the budgetary oversight is? That's where.
It's already in the budget. You already have assigned, you're replacing, you're not adding to the force, you're replacing somebody who has retired or moved on or whatever.
And as we know with COVID, budgets change and realities change. And
We
if you
still
remove
haven't
that-
added to the police force.
No, but we have, COVID particularly has reduced us by $6 million. And so a conversation about, do we continue to spend the money that we've been spending? That's, council's the only place that can happen. I hear what you're
That's up to
saying.
you, but it just creates
Yep.
more overtime.
I hear you.
Because right now, you're down 8 officers.
Sure,
We got some in the academy, we're waiting to get the next group into the academy.
I understand.
So it's just, it delays the process a lot more.
I understand. It also impacts our budget over time. So, thank you. I understand.
All right, well, no further comments. I am adjourning our meeting at 7:05. Can I get a second?
I second that
Or
motion.
who's gonna motion it, I should say? I can't motion.
I motion that, to end at 7:05.
Okay, great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting is officially over. Let me text Mr. Frank and let him know that we are done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for everything. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Mr.
all.
Loretto, thank you for everything.
No problem.
Thank you, Tony. We appreciate everything you've done and do.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, bye.
Bye.
I'll see you guys later.
Okay, bye, Tony. Tony, I'm pretty sure it's locked back there, but can you just make sure when you leave and I'll go
Sure.
off the front?
I got it about the part.
Okay, thank you.
All right?
All right, have a nice night and happy birthday again. Sorry you had to be here.
So you know you're planning your next meeting on the Berwyn.
I know, if I didn't know,
I'm
I
like,
totally
man,
would
oh,
not
man,
have
it's a
picked this
bad
date,
night.
I promise.
35, 40, how
Amazing,
old are you
right?
now? 35, 40, 45?
I wish I was that.
We'll
again.
catch up so that we can
Yes.
get,
No,
okay,
happy
great,
birthday.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Happy birthday.
All right, see you later.